So now we want to visit the Mahabharata, which we've heard something about from the beginning of our course, via this version of Mahabharata in film by Peter Brook. And what you have as a handout is an effort to help understand something about a very long and very complex story. On the second page of this, there's a family tree. So in case you would want to, we won't have time here, but in case you would want to study more closely either the Mahabharata itself or the film of the Mahabharata, if somehow you can get the film, which, as I've said, I find quite good. This could be helpful. Just briefly, first of all, why this is relevant for our course, because I've mentioned one thing is that the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the Mahabharata. It's debated by scholars, was it part from the beginning or was it added later? But it's certainly an integral part, as it is now, for practically speaking all Indians familiar with it. And as we've seen, the Bhagavad Gita is important in encounter between East and West. And one could do a whole history of that exchange that's gone on the basis of Bhagavad Gita as it's come west and then gone back to India, the so-called pizza effect, as it's been called. But I thought also the fact that now we have a film which was produced as a byproduct of, you might say, a stage drama that was first produced in Paris, and the performance lasted 9 hours, and the tickets for attendees was in the hundreds of euros. I don't know exactly, but it was expensive. This became the film that we're seeing here little excerpts from. So because it's been produced in the West, and specifically this production of it, which attempts to make it a kind of international event by having as cast, not cast in the sense we've been using it, but in the sense of the performers coming from different countries all over the world. In that way making it international, but also sort of universalizing the story. It's not a story about kings in ancient India so much, or at least as much as that. It's also meant to be a story for universal application. Some of the names are given here, key terms. It can already be bewildering. I would just call attention, first of all, in the middle, 5 Pandavas. These are sons of King Pandu. Their names are given. The middle Pandava, Arjuna, is the person who speaks with Krishna. It is to Arjuna that Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, all 5 of them are warrior heroes. Yudhishthira is the eldest, then Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva. They are sons of Pandu, but then again, they're not actually sons of Pandu. They are sons of different gods. Yudhishthira is the son of the god Yama, the lord of the underworld, the nether world, the lower worlds, and also of law. So Yudhishthira is known as Dharma Raja, the king of Dharma, of law. Bhima is the son of the wind god, Vayu. And he's a kind of giant, super powerful fighter, generally short-tempered, able to kill elephants with his bare hands, that sort of thing. That's Bhima. Arjuna is the perfect archer. He is able to shoot arrows and hit the eye of a bird that's at the top of a tall tree, and he can do this shooting either left-handed or right-handed. So he's famous as an expert marksman. And Nakula and Sahadev, Arjuna is the son of Indra, the storm god, or sometimes called the king of heaven, Indra. In opposition to him, not mentioned here, not listed here, his arch enemy is Karna. And Karna is the first son. These are all sons of the mother Kunti, and Madri is also not mentioned. You see, right from the beginning it gets complicated. One could say that one of the ongoing issues in the Mahabharata is dynastic succession. There is a problem to continue the dynasty. And the problem comes through several generations. And along with this problem, or woven through this problem, or maybe generating the problem, is a question. And the question is, what is Dharma? Dharma is this word we've heard a few times, cosmic order and personal duty, sort of combined together. What is my duty as a warrior is the question that Arjuna will ask Krishna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Why should I kill my relatives, the opponents, the sons of, and we move up slightly, 3 brothers, Dhritarashtra, the sons of Dhritarashtra, the cousins of the 5 Pandavas, want to take the entire kingdom for themselves improperly. And Arjuna, when it comes to a battle, finally after the middle, let's say, of the Mahabharata, he's asking, why should I kill my relatives? I'd rather just go to the forest and become a yogi. And Krishna's answer is, no, you cannot do that. Why? You are a kshatriya, you are a warrior. It is your duty, it's your dharma. If you don't follow your dharma, the whole world will go to hell because you are a leader, you're a king. Duryodhana is the chief of these sons of Dhritarashtra, who is determined to take the entire kingdom for himself and his brothers. They're called the Kurus. And they make an attempt to murder the Pandavas when they are younger, which fails because of some tricks. And let's go down to the basic story. Bhishma is an interesting character. He has made a vow to remain celibate throughout life. Why has he done this? Because his father wants to marry a second wife, and this can only happen if Bhishma agrees not to be the next king, which he does. He happily says, I disavow the kingdom, so go ahead and marry this woman Satyavati. then it goes from there, and there are problems of succession after this. Vyasa, who is simultaneously the poet of the entire Mahabharata and an active agent within the story of the Mahabharata, is called upon to father these three brothers, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura, by the daughters of, let me think. Okay, I've lost a little bit the sequence myself. Doesn't matter. Okay, Dhritarashtra is born blind, Pandu is born pale, and Vidura is disqualified for the kingdom because he is actually born of a Shudra mother, a servant mother. So they're all disqualified. And then the question is, so who are going to be the next generation? The Pandavas are indirectly sons of Pandu, who are actually fathered by these gods, because Pandu's been cursed. He cannot father children. And Dhritarashtra has 100 sons. They're all born simultaneously in one big lump, which then Vyasa tells the mother, Gandhari, to divide into 100 embryos. And the trouble goes from there. Who are going to be taking the kingdom after this? Well, the turning point, or one important turning point, is a dice match in which the Kurus, the 100 sons, call the Pandavas to play with them. And they know that Yudhishthir, the eldest of the Pandavas, likes to gamble. And he's very bad at it. So he's kind of addicted at dice, addicted to dice, and he always loses. As a Kshatriya, he has to agree to play the game. It would be dishonorable for him to say, no, I'd rather not. No, he has to say yes. And in the process, he loses everything, including his wife, who happens to be, by the way, the wife of his other brothers, all 5 Pandavas. That's another story. The Mahabharata is stories within stories within stories, and teachings within teachings within teachings. Some call it an encyclopedia of Hinduism, but it's, I think, much more than that. They lose the match, and because they lose the match, they are, as is agreed in the match, banished to the forest for 12 years. Please. You're just in time. You're just in time to watch the movie. We're just explaining the Mahabharata film. Is there another copy? Let's see. Yes, they've been banished to the forest for 12 years. They live in the forest preparing themselves for a fight. In the 13th year, they have to go incognito for an entire year. If they are discovered, the agreement is they have to go for another 12 years. They're successfully able to hide themselves, and when they come out, the conclusion is there has to be a war, because although the promise was they would get half the kingdom, when they come out from hiding, they get nothing. Just before the war begins, Arjuna loses his nerve. And that's when the Bhagavad Gita is spoken. His charioteer, his driver, is Krishna. Krishna becomes his advisor and speaks the Bhagavad Gita, convincing Arjuna that he should indeed fight in this battle, which then he does. Some have said that the story of this battle is really about a Pyrrhic victory. Do you know this term, Pyrrhic victory? A victory which is really no victory, because more or less everyone is killed in the battle. There's nobody left to rule in the kingdom, so to say, after the battle. And so it's been taken, and Gandhi makes this claim that the Mahabharata as a whole is an argument for nonviolence, because one can see at the end of the Mahabharata that everything is lost, everything is finished, which was Arjuna's concern in the beginning of the battle. And then finally there is a visit to hell by Yudhishthira. The 5 Pandavas do survive. And why? Because they have been protected by advice of Krishna, expert advice of Krishna. But in the battle, so many rules of battle have been broken on both sides. And so dharma of warriors, remember the question was, what is dharma? Well, it's understood that it's a story about the ending of the days of the sustaining of dharma. Because now in this battle, the dharma of performing battle has been put aside simply to win the war, and everything is lost. And in this way, the end of the heroic age comes, and the beginning of the age which is understood we are now in, the age of Kali. It's an age of degradation, of darkness, of cheating, of quarrel, and you name it, all the bad things. That's our time of living right now, which you may or may not believe on a nice, sunny, bright, and happy day like this, but this is the understanding. And it's an age which is said to last for another, more than 400,000 years. And it's only getting worse. So before it gets worse, let's watch the Mahabharata, some excerpts. First, right at the beginning, we're seeing here Vyasa, and he's introducing some of the preliminaries of the story.
The race, how your ancestors were born, how they grew up, how a vast war arose. It's the poetical history of mankind. If you listen carefully, you'll be someone else.
Ganesha, welcome. Rumour has it that you're looking for a scribe for the poetical history of mankind. I'm at your service.
You really Ganesha?
Yes. Ganesha, the person.
I'm ready. You can begin. Come and sit down. There's something secret about a beginning. I don't know how to start.
May I offer a suggestion?
You're most welcome.
As you claim to be the author of the poem, why don't you begin with yourself?
Right. A king, hunting in a forest, fell asleep. He dreamed of his wife, and there was a joyful explosion of sperm.
Very good start.
When the king awoke and saw the sperm on a leaf, he called a falcon and said, "Take my sperm quickly to the queen." But the falcon was attacked by another falcon. The sperm fell into a river. A fish swallowed it. A few months later, a fisherman caught the fish cut it open and found in its stomach a tiny little girl whom he called Satyavati. She grew up. She became very beautiful. But unfortunately she smelled dreadfully of fish. This made her very sad. No one would come near her. But one day, a wandering hermit saw her and said, "I like you. Let's make love here right away, and I promise to turn your dreadful stench into a most delicious odor." She cried, "Now, here, I can't." So the hermit drew a thick mist across the river and the fields. She opened herself to him, and as she did so, she became fragrant, irresistible.
They had a son?
Yes, I am that son, Vyasa.
Keep going, son of the mist. You haven't started yet. What happened at the beginning?
It was a golden age. There was no war, no misery. Men were close to the gods. There was a prince called Bhishma, a perfect prince. His mind was clear, his body strong, his heart noble. But he couldn't be king.
Why?
Because it was impossible for him to marry, to have children.
Why?
Because his father had cast his eyes on Satyavati, and he burned with passion for her.
Satyavati? Your mother?
Yes, my mother.
Your mother's playing a part in your story.
Any objection?
No objection at all. Did she marry Bhishma's father?
Satyavati refused to marry unless her sons could be king. So Bhishma sacrificed himself for his father's happiness. To avoid all family conflicts, he swore the oath of absolute renunciation.
I abjure forever the love of woman.
He said that?
He said just that in all solemnity.
I abjure forever the love of woman.
And the gods applauded his act. In fact, they were so pleased with Bhishma that they gave him the power to choose the time of his death.
Is it possible?
It was possible in those days.
So Satyavati had another child?
Yes, but he was a poor weakling. But you know, in the olden days, if a king wanted to get married, he had to win a wife in a tournament. But this young king was far too feeble to even take part. So Bhishma fought in his place. He swept everyone off the field and came back with 3 wives instead of 1. The youngest was crying.
Amba, why these tears?
Before you won me at the tournament, I had already chosen a husband. In secret. He knows it, and he loves me. It's King Salva. How can you, who so revere fidelity, how can you marry me to your half-brother, when I'm already bound by love to another man? Salva's waiting for me. Let me join him.
What you say is true, Amba. You can go.
Let me pause. So this is Salva, and Salva's going to reject her because he says she's been taken by somebody else. And so she goes back to Bhishma and says, I've been rejected. What should I do now? I will marry you, Bhishma. And Bhishma says, not possible. I've made a vow of celibacy. And she says, but you're the one who won me at this tournament, and it's because of you that I've been rejected by Salva. Bhishma says, no way. And so Bhishma becomes her arch enemy throughout her life. She decides that she will kill him. Well, that's just a little bit of the opening. Now I want to, if I can find the location, try to move to the dice game. Let's see if this will work. 41, 11. Yeah. Okay, this is Shakuni. He is going to play the dice against Yudhishthir in black. Is and this is Yudhishthir and his brothers. Nakula, Sahadeva, Arjuna is over here. And this is Karna.
Yes. I'll play for my nephew.
You spend the night playing. People have seen you perform unbelievable tricks. But cheating is a crime.
The powerful player who knows how to play and who wanders calmly is not worried by cheating. Here, there is no crime, only you think. Nothing but the game. A seasoned warrior fights against beginners. You call that cheating? Science is not cheating. You always enter a game with a wish to win. That's how life is. No cheat can ever defeat the master. Withdraw from the match if you are afraid.
You know I cannot refuse to play. Once I'm changed. And pearls without equal, churn in the vortex of the ocean. I play them against you.
That's Duryodhana.
Young, beautiful, trained in 64 skills.
I have what?
I have as many maids things. The lady, the toilet, dressed in the finest silvery.
I have one.
16,000 chandeliers of golden shanks.
I have one.
My cows, my mules, my goats, my elephants.
I have one.
My forest.
I have one. I have one friend. I have one.
My kingdom, all that I praise.
Krishna-ksetra. I said nothing.
Easier. He was so big. Now, let's proceed.
Have you still something left?
I still have my brothers number in San Diego. The twins of golden eyes, sons of Latin. They are beyond all value. I pray them against you.
I have one. My three sons are child.
I still have Arjuna. He who can never lose. Krishna's friend. When he plucks the hook, his no Gandhidha, every living creature trembles. His air is precious to his I now lay him against you. I still have Bhima, built like a lion, the mightiest of men. He is strength itself. I played him against you. others I will enjoy. I save myself. Play myself.
But you have one last possession, and you forget.
What?
You possess a wife. She's the only treasure I have not won. Save her body and win back everything, thanks to her.
She's neither who's nor tall, neither pale nor dark. She's the earth's most perfect creation, and the pole of all its desire. I play her against you.
Wrongly.
What do you want?
You're requested to come to the palace
Who requests you?
because Inishira has lost you.
What do you mean he has lost you?
He has lost you at last.
Had he nothing else to play?
He played all he had and lost it all. He even played and lost himself.
Lost himself.
That's what I say.
Before losing you?
Before losing you,
Return to the hall and ask him this. Is it true that you lost yourself first before losing me? And if you yourself were lost, have you the right to claim?
you were staked and lost. You're ours. Come.
Allow me to dress. I will one robe to stain your blood. And in my beard will show you the state of the kings.
Who cares? We have formed you baptized. You are now no more than a slave. Enough. Come.
Here's the new servant.
There is not a breath of life in Bhishma, brother. You see this shield to nothing.
Krishna, did you have the right to lose me? If you lost yourself first before playing man's role after yours? Can one belong to someone who has lost himself?
Bhishma, answer me.
I am troubled. The question is obscure.
When you discovered this wager, she had already lost himself. So, she is not Plague's wife.
Error. She was designated by name, and well and truly won.
How could he satisfy five men? She's clearly public property.
Whether he lost her before or after, I don't see the difference. Draupadi has been won. I regret to have to say it, but it is so.
Everything has been won. Their clothes, down to the last clasp.
Draupadi as well. We want to see her naked.
Dushasana, take off her robe.
Listen to what I say. When the battle comes, I will smash Dushasana's chest. And I will drink his blood, I swear I will. I will eat his guts and drink his blood. Young better. She will only try to fly.
But we have finished taking this under our eyes.
It's a protege of Krishna.
A protege. Where is your protege? He's wearing layers and layers of cloth.
A famous scene, a very famous scene in the Mahabharata, this protection of Draupadi by Krishna, who was actually not present, but he appears in the form of an endless cloth for her. In performances of this as a drama in India, often the audience will bring saris, they'll bring cloth as a kind of, gesture, as a donation, but also as representing Krishna in this scene. Well, all of this is going to lead to vows being made of destruction, and eventually this is going to lead to war. Let's see. Preparing for war. I wanted to show, 311.
Put her with the sleeves.
Whoops.
Like the dishes.
Sorry. How far does this go? 3. I wanted to show the Peter Brooks version of the Bhagavad Gita. Well, don't remember if it's on this or the next disc. Okay, this is the beginning of the battle. Okay, here we go.
You cannot repeat.
He promises victory.
Drona is the teacher of both sides in military science. But he's taken the side of the enemies of the Pandavas.
Is there a way of killing him?
No, not unless I lay down my arms to prepare for death.
Before whom could you lay down your arms?
Before a man of truth, the day he chooses to lie.
Which is an anticipation. Yudhishthira is famous for being a man of truth, and within the battle he's going to tell a lie, and that will be the end of Drona, this powerful warrior.
My mouth is dry, my body trembles. My bow slips from my hand. Uncle, cousins, nephews, and Ron, my teacher, they are all there. I can't bring that to my own family. My resolution is gone. I can't defend myself. I will wait here for death.
Arjuna has thrown down his bow and his arrows.
He has thrown down his bow and his arrows.
Why does he bow his head? Where is his pride? Where is his wish to fight?
What is this mad and shameful weakness? Stand up and fight.
I'm in ambush. I can't see where my duty lies. Teacher. What is Krishna doing?
He's speaking to Arjuna.
What is he saying?
He's telling Arjuna that victory and defeat are the same. He's urging him to act, but not to reflect on the fruit of the act. He says to him, seek detachment. Fight without desire.
You say, forget desire, seek detachment. Yet you urge me to battle, to massacre. Your words are ambiguous, I am confused.
Krishna tells him, don't withdraw into solitude. Renunciation is not enough.
Somehow we lost the touch.
Yet action mustn't dominate you.
In the heart of action, you must remain free from all attachment.
How can I put into practice what you are demanding of me? The mind is capricious, unstable. It's evasive, feverish, turbulent, tenacious. It's harder to subdue than taming the wind.
You must learn to see with the same eye a mound of earth and a heap of gold, a cow and a sage, a dog and the man who eats the dog. There's another intelligence beyond the mind.
Passion drags us away. Darkness dulls our senses. How can I find this intelligence? With what will?
To reply to this question, Krishna led Arjuna through the tangled forest of illusion. He began to teach him the ancient yoga of wisdom and the mysterious path of action. He spoke for a long time, very long time, between the two armies preparing to destroy themselves.
All men are born into illusion. How can one reach the truth if one is born in illusion?
Slowly, Krishna led Arjuna through all the fibers of his spirit. He showed him the deepest movements of his being and his true battlefield, where you need neither warriors nor arrows, where each man must fight alone. It's the most secret knowledge. He showed him the whole truth. He taught him how the world unfolds.
I feel my illusions vanish one by one. Now, if I'm capable of contemplating it, show me your universal form. I see. One point, I see the entire world. All of the warriors,
hurl themselves into your mouth. You grind them between your teeth. They wish to be destroyed, and you destroy them. Through your body I see the stars. I see life and death. I see silence. Tell me who you are. I'm shaken to the depths. I'm afraid. I am all that you think, all that you say. Everything hangs on me, like pearls on a thread. I am the earth's scent and the fire's heat. I am appearance and disappearance. I am the substance of hope. I am the radiance of all that shines. I am the hand of the moon. All beings fall into the night, and all beings are brought back to daylight. I have already defeated all these warriors. But he who thinks he can kill, and he who thinks he can be killed, both mistaken. No weapon can pierce the life that informs you. No fire can burn it. No water can drench it. No wind can make it dry. Have no fear, and rise up. Because I love you. Now you can dominate your mysterious and incomprehensible spirit. You can see its other side. Act as you must act. I myself am never without action. Rise up.
My illusion is dissolved. My error destroyed. By your grace now I am firm. My doubts are dispersed. I will act according to your word.
When will they stop talking? If Arjuna refuses to fight, if he is paralyzed with fear, let him and his brothers go back to the woods and let me reign.
Yes.
Okay, so that was one version of the Bhagavad Gita. A condensed version indeed, but nonetheless, I think it conveys something of the spirit, the mood, the situation, and the message. And that's pretty much, I think, all I want to say about the Mahabharata. What I want to do for the last half hour is return to our subject of Western esotericism. Okay, one moment while I shift to the other computer. Let's see. We can close this. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Okay. And I guess we can just pull this out. Oh, okay. I wanted to give this as just one of several examples of Bhagavad Gita in literature. While I'm changing this, I'll just mention another film which is a very different style and mood. And that is called The Legend of Bagger Vance. Have you heard of this? It's a story about playing golf. It's supposed to take place in the 1930s. And the novel from which it's taken was intended to in some respect, be based on the Bhagavad Gita, where the golfer hero is being advised by his caddy. What's the Croatian word for caddy? The one who helps. Okay. And, he's advising him how to be a successful golf player, but of course it's more than that. He's advising him how to be victorious in his life and how to have a greater vision of the purpose of life, and so on. I can't say it's the best film. I'm not enthusiastic about it in the way I am about this film, but it's entertaining. Okay. I said I was going to talk about the modern esoteric tradition, but I think it's more relevant as a closing topic that we talk about modern yoga. Modern yoga, martial arts, and body culture. And here, with respect to India and the West, I think this is quite relevant, simply because modern yoga, what's now called modern yoga, has become, where's my notes for this? Has become not just a Western phenomenon, but it's there in Hong Kong as well, where I also teach. Oh, page 9, page 10, where's page 8? Excuse me. Page 8, it's not there. Oh well. It's there somewhere. It disappeared. Doesn't matter. Oh, here. 7, 8. There, we got it. Okay. Do we have yoga centers here in Pula? How many? A few? Yes, of course. Here's a little history of modern yoga. We go back to 1893. Remember, this was the time of the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, where Swami Vivekananda made a splash. 3 years later, he published a book called Raja Yoga, based, I believe, on lectures which he had given. This obviously was focused on yoga in general, but especially a certain aspect of yoga, emphasizing practice. Then the Theosophical Society, we've already talked about, is articulating a kind of vision, a cosmic vision, which is in one way or another connecting to the traditions of yoga and the idea of entering a higher level of awareness, of consciousness. Jumping to the year of Indian independence, 1947, India becomes active soon after independence to promote yoga. In fact, I've heard that they are now officially promoting it in mainland China. They have people going, and they're being allowed to come by the Chinese government to promote yoga. So there's yoga studios in China now. In the 50s and 60s, I'm kind of jumping back and forth, but there develops what someone has called denominational yoga. The word denomination, Croatian. Okay, denominatia. That's easy. In other words, yoga which is associated with a particular tradition, a particular usually religious tradition. And this starts to enter into the counterculture as it came to be known. 1960s, we remember we talked about Jack Kerouac and the Dharma Bums and all the beatniks and then the hippies. All of that was going on in America became known as the counterculture. And yoga became part of it. It was part of the mix. By the 1990s, I think one can safely say it became part of mainstream American culture and also beyond America, perhaps well before that. Why, one might ask, since it's such a foreign thing? I think it's a simple answer. It seemed to offer simply an addition to the body culture of the West. The whole culture we have of sports and health and jogging and 10,000 other things. It was, I believe, also around in the 90s that health studios started becoming popular. Is that a safe statement? Maybe earlier than the 80s. In the 80s, health studios. And then health studios started offering yoga classes. So you could go swimming and then you could exercise and then you could do some yoga and then you could do something else.
I think only the name remains.
Only the name remains.
Because even hatha yoga is not taught anymore anywhere. So hatha yoga is just a little part of yoga.
Yeah. While all this is happening, or within all of this mix, are coming different types of yoga, and that's being explained here. One author has referred to the whole development of modern yoga in terms of what he calls constructive Orientalism. We've heard of several different terms for Orientalism. He focuses on this text, the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, and shows how by various means this text has been adopted as a classical text of modern yoga, whether or not anyone really follows the text. It's seen as kind of the authority which is giving the blessings for anything and everything to happen. I have a friend who's just published a very, very good quality translation with several commentaries, traditional commentaries to the Yoga Sutra. Then what's called early modern psychosomatic yoga, going back to Vivekananda, adding neo-Hindu, new Hindu and Western esoteric traditions. We have, again, the Raja Yoga of Vivekananda. And here we get a little flavor of his mood. He says, each soul is potentially divine. The goal of yoga is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. That's one of those kind of pithy statements of Vivekananda. He had a way with words. He would kind of catch the imagination by making it all sound quite simple. And you can get from this something of this idea that you find also in theosophy, that behind and underneath or beyond all of the dogmas and doctrines of religion is something deeper. he's saying that yoga has several different forms, and take one, take another, but one way or another you can attain this higher consciousness. And then what one author calls neo-Hindu styles, which are sort of weaving together elements of Hindu revivalism that we saw earlier, nationalism, and tied in with this is nationalist Orientalism. This is just one example you can find on the internet, the Bharatiya Yog Sangstan. Bharatiya means Indian, Samstang means society. And then quite well known now in the West is postural yoga, asana, BKS Iyengar. One of his books you see practically anywhere. If there's any books on yoga, you'll see Light on Yoga, where he has pictures of how to do the positions and instructions. He also wrote a book called Light on Pranayam. Iyengar is still alive as far as I know. He must be in his 90s now, and quite healthy as far as I know, because he's been practicing yoga. One of his disciples, TKV Deshikachar, is also fairly well known. And then there are so many others. Shivananda yoga is very widespread. And now you have yoga teachers from everywhere and anywhere. And just recently in America, there was in the news a big issue that in the state of Iowa, the state government decided they're going to tax yoga studios. And there was a big uproar amongst the yoga followers who say, you can't do that. This is a spiritual, religious practice. You can't tax a religion in America. And then it's going on from there. You know. As one commentator put it, if this is going to be the claim that yoga should not be taxed because it's spiritual, religious, they have to take into account that this will mean also in America that it will be forbidden to teach yoga in the schools. Why? Because it's spiritual, religious. Separation of church and state. So anyway, that debate is going on. Swami Yogananda, there was a book I would have liked to spend more time looking at. Paramahansa Yogananda. Did anyone ever read his autobiography? Boy, you must have read his autobiography. I would be shocked if you hadn't. Yeah, I read it much earlier than that. This was a real hit in America. Everyone was reading it. I mean, anyone who was interested in anything alternative or counterculture, they were all reading the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. It has an extremely Christian flavor in many respects, at the same time emphasizes how magically mystical. It's very much about re-enchantment, and at the same time it's very much about how it's all scientific. There's a scientific explanation for all of the mystical, wonderful things that happen. Let me have a look. I think I can get a little excerpt of him here. Yes, here we go. He tells the story of, which is a true account, of the perfume saint. Someone who's able to project perfumes at a distance. And then he explains in his scientific terms how this is possible. Years later, I understood by inner realization how Ganda Baba, the perfume saint, accomplished his materializations. The method, alas, is beyond the reach of the world's hungry hordes. The different sensory stimuli, here's his explanation, to which man reacts. Tactual, visual, gustatory, means tasting, auditory and olfactory, smelling, are produced by vibratory variations in electrons and protons. Are you convinced? The vibrations in turn are regulated by lifetrons. Are you getting more convinced? Subtle life forces, or finer than atomic energies, intelligently charged with the 5 distinctive sensory idea substances. They're idea substances. Gandhabhava, tuning himself with the cosmic force by certain yogic practices, was able to guide the lifetrons to rearrange their vibratory structure and objectivize the desired result. His perfume, fruit, and other miracles were actually materializations of mundane vibrations and not inner sensations hypnotically produced. Performances of miracles such as shown by the perfume saint are spectacular but spiritually useless. Having little purpose beyond entertainment, they are digressions from a serious search for God. So this is one of his themes in the book. The real aim of yoga is the search for God, and the organization which he founded, the Self-Realization Fellowship, with headquarters in Los Angeles, is continuing with his teachings. There's also the Brahma Kumaris. Do we have Brahma Kumaris in Pula? No, this is a group which was founded some decades ago, or was it the turn of the 20th century? No, I think it was more recently, by one Gujarati gentleman who mainly had housewives as his followers, and one of the things he advised them was to stop having sex with their husbands, and of course their husbands didn't like that. Anyway, the Brahma Kumaris are also internationally visible. I don't know why transcendental meditation is included under denominational forms. Maharishi would probably have argued that it was not denominational, because he always emphasized, again, this is something scientific. They have one of their main centers, or their main center in America. I think it's also in Iowa, actually. Forgotten the name of the town, but they have a center. I just read about this because Maharishi claimed that if sufficient number or percentage of people in the world will chant certain mantras, it will have an effect on the entire world. And so they now have a center in this town which is enclosed by a chain link fence, and it's 1,000 Brahmins live there. They've been initiated as Brahmins, which means like priests, and they stay within this area all the time. They're not supposed to leave because they should not be contaminated by outside influences. And so it seems they've agreed to stay there and to do their priestly activities, including the chanting, the recitation of different mantras. Yes, these things are happening. And then we have the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, better known by most people as the Hare Krishnas. Hare Krishna, by the way, is an evocative form of address to Krishna. We've been seeing the Bhagavad Gita presentation in ISKCON, as it's called for short, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. One of the foundational or central texts is this book, the Bhagavad Gita. There are others which are also important and are much bigger, especially Bhagavata Purana. But the Bhagavad Gita is considered a kind of foundational text, a canonical text. And here, it's international, founded by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in 1966 in New York. He declared it as international, although his followers at that time couldn't imagine that it would ever become international. It has indeed become international, and what I find interesting is it's gone back to India and become quite prominent in India. They have their headquarters in the east of India and then other centers, and it's become actually highly respected, as far as I know, throughout the subcontinent as an institution which is reviving tradition. So it's a kind of, for the Indians, a revival movement. In the West, it's better known for public singing or chanting of this mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which is a form of yoga of concentration on sound, which is considered non-different from the person whom it refers to. So the name Krishna and Krishna are considered abhinatva. It's a technical term, meaning non-difference. Whoops. Abhinatva. Bhinna means separate, abhinna means non-separate, and tva means ness. So non-separateness of name and owner of the name, the signifier and the signified. Right, and finally, one has to say something about Asian martial arts. I'm no expert on any of this, so I took some help from, dare I say, Wikipedia. Some other sources. Anyway, little history. To me it's interesting that some of this has to do with military history. That at the end of World War II, of course, the Americans prevailed over the Japanese by means which we won't go into now, but they prevailed. Actually, my father was stationed in Okinawa for some time. Some of these military personnel of United States and I guess other Western eventually came in contact on a more friendly level with Japanese military, and then they started taking up some of the martial arts, learning from them.
It's also it's true about Okinawa, but it's interesting that it's quite the same as some other things, because there is exoteric teaching and esoteric teaching in martial arts. So,
yeah.
But so only the best chosen students were taken to do esoteric,
right,
to transmit to
the inner knowledge.
To have this inner knowledge of the rest of us staying only on the surface of the movements. Yeah.
Well, one could see lots of parallels here, perhaps with the popularization of yoga. Some more external aspects are the more popular side of it, and then there's something more esoteric inside.
It originated from yoga,
Well, yeah, the history of martial arts is another, the earlier history, there are discussions about whether some of this or all of it, some aspects of it came from India to East Asia. Yes, that's true. And of course, we have, speaking of the popular side, certain famous performers in film. So Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan produced films where they, did amazing acrobatics, which were somehow understood to be actually these traditional East Asian martial arts, and then it went from there. So now martial arts, I think it's again a case of pizza effect. It became hugely popular in the West. It has gone back to East Asia, to Japan and to China. So now there is this famous monastery, Shaolin Monastery, where I think hundreds of people are coming, assembling, and getting training. And as far as I know, the government of the People's Republic of China are quite happy about this, because it's bringing advantages to the nation. All right. In conclusion, notice I put a question mark there. Conclusions? It's hard to make conclusions out of all of that we have explored in the last 6 weeks. So all I've done is brought back to our kind of themes, our terms, Orientalism, Transcendentalism. I didn't mention here exoticism, but I think that's an obvious component of all this. We've seen that Orientalism has several dimensions, and we just might ask ourselves whether we are actually Orientalists in one form or another. In other words, are we sort of by definition of being Westerners automatically implicated in some of the attitudes that may be there represented? Maybe not in their grosser forms, but possibly in the less gross forms. What is, and then related to that is the bigger theme of attitude that we have as we identify ourselves with a particular country, such as Croatia. How much do we then see persons of other countries as the other, with a capital O? How much do we see, in terms of political tensions between maybe our country and another country? We start therefore seeing persons of that country as others in an inimical sense. And then the opposite attitude, you could say, to that would be what I'm calling transcendentalism. Whether there is, as would be claimed by so many, well, broadly speaking, religious traditions, spiritual traditions, such as that of some of the texts we've encountered, like Bhagavad Gita, is there something which is non-contingent? You know the word contingent? Croatian. Contingent means depending on something. No, not contained. Contingent. Contingent. Something is contingent upon something else. Anyway, dependent, I guess we can say. Something like dependent, yeah. And then the question for us personally might be, is it a meaningful endeavor to pursue some non-contingent truth? Or are we skeptical, essentially skeptical, saying there is no such thing, there is no absolute, there is only relative truth, and our business in the university is to collect enough of this relative truth so we can get a diploma, so we can go out and get a job. And then the real truth is, that I can get a paycheck at the end. That would be a very cynical attitude, but I think for many students it boils down to that, unfortunately. And then another question we haven't, I'm telling now what we haven't done, is explored a question which historians, anthropologists, and who else are often pondering, and that is, how do cultures interact with other cultures? Well, sociologists are dealing with this, of course, as well. Is there something called diffusion, where a culture is, or an idea is getting diffused? The idea of transmigration of souls, for example, is this something that came up one place and then got carried by various means to other places? Or is it an idea which sort of cropped up in different places, fully independent of each other? That would be called parallelism. What kinds of mediations have taken place or do take place between cultures? How does culture get represented as it gets carried? We just saw some bits of this Mahabharata film. This is a representation of a text which one might even argue is itself a representation of something else. Things can pass through many forms before they come to us, and then what is it we are getting as the so-called end user? And then if there is mediation, how is the mediation happening? The opposite of mediation is immediate, to have some direct encounter. That gets into all sorts of questions of philosophy, and this was a concern of folks like Immanuel Kant. How do we know something? What can we know? What are the limits of knowledge? And so, as you can see, all I have in the end is a bunch of question marks for you to fill in the answers. I think in general what I wanted to do with the course is really just expose you to a range of ideas and possibilities which my hope is you have found in one way or another inspiring and possibly the beginning of some further pursuit. Okay? Anybody want to?
This is our home exam.
No, this is not your home exam.
There is more.
You would like it to be that, wouldn't you? That's the question. What's the exam? The exam we have here, and I will post it in case what I give you gets eaten up by your pet dog before you get to answer it. And part of one of the questions on this exam requires that you read this. However, you don't have to respond to question number 1 if you don't want. You can respond to, or I'm asking you to respond to 2 out of the 4 questions. And they're quite open-ended questions. So what we're really looking for is, how much you've digested, how much you've taken something from the course for yourself. I've put a deadline on that, and I would really strongly request you to keep to the deadline, Tuesday, June 8th, as the time to send this to us. And I guess we're going to have to inform those who are not here otherwise what to do. And of course, if you have any question on the technicalities of this or any other aspect, we can discuss. And then we're having the final oral exam for all who are willing and able to come for it. This will be toward the end of June. Exact dates we'll let you know, but it'll be something like, it'll be after the 25th, I believe. I'll be visiting Pula again for a couple of days, so we're going to have to do it within a small window of time, of a couple of days. So don't go underwater sea diving in South America or something during that time. All right? So thank you all very much, all of you who are here and all of you who are not here. And yes, we hope to see you again in June. Okay? As they say in India, and it says in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of some accomplishment, Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. It is done. Okay.
Jesus did also something similar. When he was dying on the cross, it was over, and it was dying, something like this.
Oh? I thought he said, "Oh Lord, why have you forgotten me?" or something.
He was saying that.
That was earlier. Why have you forsaken me, I think, is the English. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we will indeed.